This episode of Finding Demo Surf Fishing is being brought to you by Ninja Tackle. Head on over to ninjatackleva.com and take a look at all the gear that they have in the shop. Rods? Check. Rigs? Check. Bait? Check. Reels? Check. Well, what about firearms and any kind of other accessories? Oh, they got that too. That's right, Ninja Tactical. Got you all set up for all your needs and set up out there for the fun world of fishing and shooting. Thanks so much, Ninja Tackle, for being a part of the show. That again, go to ninjatackleva.com and get your order set up and ready to go. This week on Finding Demo Surf Fishing, we are going international yet again. That's right, we're going north this time though. We are heading up to Nova Scotia. Now, this episode I have been wanting to do for a little while, and it has been very much so on my mind, especially in the world of stripers. If any of you have heard a couple other episodes, we've talked about stripers and the monster that they are. Well, we're going to talk about a little bit more than that. So this week, we're talking with Sean Townsend of Stripers of the Strait. And you're listening to Finding Demo Surf Fishing. Here we go. All right, here we go. New week. Hope you're doing well wherever you are when you're listening to this show. Like always, I hope you're on the beach catching fish, enjoying a little bit of quiet time, or you're on your way. Either way. This week, like I said, we're talking with Sean Townsend of Stripers of the Strait. And Sean, I found him through social media. I don't remember how exactly. I remember looking up something about stripers, and Sean popped up, and I was like, well, this should be interesting. And then I reached out to him, and thankfully he was willing to come on the show. And we were pretty good for a little while there, and then all of a sudden this hurricane decided to come and screw everything up, and sure enough, it just had to go right in his backyard and hit him. So we had to delay a little while. Thankfully, he's doing well and recovering, and the things are just getting better and better every day, and we can finally bring you this episode. So I hope you got your notepads ready, because we're going to talk about a lot of great things, and this is going to apply amongst all areas of fishing. So without further ado, Sean, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me. Bye.
I'm just glad I finally got you, man.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're doing okay. I'm glad you guys have recovered pretty well. I mean, when we were talking offline, you said you guys got hit pretty well.
yeah. It came through as a pretty bad post-tropical storm, what they called it, but we got through it, and we're doing okay. That's the most important thing. So.
Absolutely. I'm really glad to hear that. And we were also talking pre-show. For those of you who don't know, I've got family in Maine, and I kind of started learning how to fish up there. Sean was telling me they were a crew from Maine came up there to help you get the power poles back up. Is that right?
Yeah, their crew came in and did a great job. They put all our power poles back up that we lost, and after 8 days with no power, it was a welcome sight to see. And good group of guys, man. I can't tell you how much I appreciated the work they did in here for us.
Well, there you go, Maine boys. Good job getting it done, helping them out up there. So I got it's stupid in a way to say this. I mean, being down here, I've only had to deal with Sally since I've lived here so far. But it's always kind of cool to see how everybody bands together to help out the communities when they get hit with something like that. All the power company guys, they all work together, the guys and gals. Sorry, didn't mean to say it like that. Those teams get together, get everybody back with power, try to help them get the roads. It's always a good sight to see.
Yeah, we had a lot of different crews from, other provinces here in Canada, and crews from all throughout the eastern seaboard of the U.S. Came up here and do what they had to do to, get us back on the power grid, and it was awesome. Like I said, I can't thank those guys enough for the work they did here.
Your website, let's get all your social media out there. So on Facebook is your primary. It is Stripers of the Strait. And then your website is stripersofthestrait.com. Is there any other social media platforms I missed?
I'm on Facebook, so you can find me there as well under Stripers of the Strait.
Perfect. All right. Well, now that we got the fun stuff out of taking care of all the admin, let's get into the reason that we're here, and let's talk fishing, man. So
okay,
let's dial it back. Tell us your story and what got you into fishing.
Well, I guess for me, fishing has been a lifelong passion. Um, I grew up in the province of Newfoundland. For those of you who are not familiar with Newfoundland, it's on the eastern most point in Canada here, and it's a big fishing area. My family were avid outdoorsmen, avid fishermen, and I started fishing when I was probably just old enough to hold a fishing rod, and that got me going. Uh, my family moved here when I was 10 years old in Nova Scotia. Again, we're on the eastern seaboard of Canada. We're completely surrounded by ocean, but we do have beautiful lakes and rivers here. And I've kept at it all the years. I was 30 years as a first responder. The fishing kept me grounded. It was my release. For those of you that had done the job, military, police, paramedic, fire, what have you, you got to have that release, and that was my release. Like I said, I spent 30 years as a first responder, and then, after 30 years, I finally decided to retire, and just kept following my passion. Of course, it gave me more time to fish as I was retired, and so I figured, why not? I got licensed as a guide and started my guiding business, and I absolutely love it. I do it because I love it. I love getting out there, meeting the people that I have as guests, clients, or sports as we call them. And I this is my third year at it now, and I had my best year this year. I just absolutely love it.
That's excellent, man. For those of you who don't know, an easy way to get to those areas where, especially where Sean is, if you go into Maine, right around central and northern, there are ferries that will take you up there. You can bring the car up and you can do all sorts of travel, and it is beautiful country up there. It is on our list of things to do in our RV in the next few years. We didn't get to this last because that bug thing came out and got us, but it's real nice. So if you ever want to travel up there, you can do it by plane, but the ferry is a real easy, fun way to go because you really get the sights in. So hook that up. Moving into that, sorry, as I digress, what type of fishing? Because, like you said, you got lakes, rivers, streams, brooks, ponds, but you got the ocean, you got it all. What kind of fishing do you like to do?
Well, obviously for me, the big thing is for striped bass. I started guiding predominantly for striped bass, surf casting, surf fishing for stripers here in Nova Scotia. We do have the Gulf Stream comes up through our province here. On the side of the province I live on, the Northumberland Strait, they say we've got the some of the warmest waters north of the Carolinas. Not a lot of people realize that. They think that we're, cold and ice bound most of the year, which probably 5 or 6 months a year we are. But once the spring hits and the summer and fall here, the fishing takes off, and it's awesome. So, for guiding for me, it's predominantly for striped bass. And even when I'm not guiding, I love to target striped bass myself. And whether I'm bait casting, spin casting, or fly fishing, the last year or so I've really gotten into more fly fishing for striped bass. And like you said, we do have we've got our rivers and lakes here, and Nova Scotia is we have some beautiful rivers for trout. We have speckled trout, rainbow trout, brown trout. Right now in fall here on the Northumberland Strait is the area that I'm in. We're getting a fall run of Atlantic salmon. That is really, it's been my passion for the last 20 to 25 years is fly fishing for Atlantic salmon. And if you've never caught an Atlantic salmon on a fly rod, the first time you do it, you'll never stop.
Oh man, I can only imagine that fight has got to be that's got to be fierce on a fly rod.
Yeah, they are. I've done a lot of fishing over the years and caught a lot of different fish, but I'll tell you, man, nothing fights like an Atlantic salmon. It's it's a forearm burning fight on a single handed fly rod.
All right, I'm going to digress. We're going to jump into that, and then we're going to jump back into the questions. Sorry. Let's talk more
Okay.
about that.
Okay.
With fly fishing, so you're doing that for Atlantic salmon. You're doing that from the beach. You're doing a walk and go, or are you doing it off the river?
I'm doing that off the river. So it's basically for me, it's what, we'll call walk and wade.
Yeah.
So, we have several rivers here on the north side of the province. Actually, all the rivers on the north side of Nova Scotia and what's called the Northumberland Strait. So it's a body of water that sits between the provinces of Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and New Brunswick. So in the fall, we get a fall run of Atlantic salmon here. So the season starts September 15th and runs through to October 31st. It's fairly rain dependent, and we need the water levels for the fish to move into the rivers. Weeks ago, we did have heavy rain, and as we're speaking now, I'm hearing heavy showers on my roof, which is music to my ears because as I know tomorrow and the next day, it's the fishing's going to pick up again. So it's yeah. So we've, like I said, all our rivers here get a fall run of Atlantic salmon. We have, we do have all the way down to an area called Cape Breton. The Marguerite River is a world-renowned salmon fishing river, probably one of the most popular rivers here in Nova Scotia. But it's within 2.5 hours from where I live. So if the fishing's good there, I'll pack up and drive there.
Yeah,
So
I would.
yeah.
Oh man, I can't wait till this episode, or when this episode airs, because I already know who I'm going to call. A buddy of mine is name's Larry Grossman. He lives down here in the Panhandle, Florida, and he's actually starting up his fly fishing charters here in the on the beach.
Yeah. Well, this year this was my first year actually offering fly fishing for striped bass, actually. So I picked up some gear, saltwater rod and reel combos this year for clients that wanted to target them on the fly. And I actually did have some clients this year that where I was able to get them out fly fishing for them. And it just adds another dimension other than bait fishing or spin casting. It's a lot of fun on a fly rod.
Yeah,
You know,
I can only
yeah,
imagine. There's
yeah.
nothing.
You hook into a 30-inch striper on a fly rod, you're into a good fight.
Fight is a really
Yeah,
good word.
yeah.
All right, we'll get back into those ones here later on. We keep on doing that. What is your favorite thing about fishing?
Oh boy, what isn't my favorite thing about
Right,
fishing?
exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I love about it. To pinpoint one favorite thing, I thought, what, one of the things I really like about fishing is the people I meet. Whether it's the sports I have here that I guide, or the people I meet when I'm out fishing striped bass, or if I'm out trout fishing or salmon fishing on the river. If you fish, you always have that in common with someone else who fishes, and you never run into somewhere where we didn't automatically spark up a conversation about fishing. Like, what fisherman doesn't like to talk about fishing? So
Exactly.
it's I think that's one of the things I like. You always have an automatic bond with someone else who fishes, and it's not hard to, a complete stranger to sit down and, sometimes and just chat away. The time flies and you're talking about fishing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. All I can think about is all the conversations that I've had in the last couple weeks, hanging out with people at the last couple tournaments I've been at, and it's not like shop talk. You work with somebody, you're not talking
no,
work, you're just talking fishing, and it's fun.
yeah. And I mean, there's times, well, you go fishing and you'll run into somebody, like I said, you don't even know, and an hour later you've spent not fishing but talking about fishing. So, and that's one of the things that I really sort of enjoy about it is, like I said, getting out there and meeting all the different people. And with my fish guiding business, the sports I've had, super people, whether they're first time beginners or experienced fishers. I've met some really fantastic people. So that's one of the favorite things, I think, for me.
Nice, very good. Well, I think you already nailed this one, but I'll ask anyway. What is your favorite fish to target?
Well, yeah, it has to be the Atlantic salmon. So even though,
Oh, I actually thought you were going to say the striper. You got me
well,
there.
I have to admit it. I have to admit, even though the striper puts a little bit of cash in my pocket, it has to be the Atlantic salmon. I won't, I can't deny that. But striped bass is it's right up there, and it's I really enjoy the different ways I can fish for striped bass on our beaches here, and in the summer in the warm weather, it's beautiful. I mean, I absolutely love it. But for me, it's like I said, I got to say my favorite has got to still I got to go back to the Atlantic salmon.
Okay, so I'm going to ask is why is it the salmon? What is it about the Atlantic salmon that makes it your favorite?
Uh, I guess some of it is the challenge. The stock numbers are not, where they were years and years ago. There would be days I go spend days on the river, I don't catch a fish. And then when you do hook into a big fish or a fish, it's pretty special. It's challenging. It's just the excitement, to go days and days without catching a fish, and then you're like, why am I doing this? And all of a sudden you hook a fish, and you're like, that's completely forgotten.
Yep.
And you're right back at it. I don't know. It's like I said, it is challenging, and they're not an easy fish. And the regulations we have here, I mean, we're fishing with barbless hooks, so you gotta know to keep that pressure on. You lose, you probably lose more fish than you catch when you do hook them. But like I said, just the challenge of it, and also being out this time of the year, like with our season, like you mentioned before we came on here, the seasons we could change here. It's beautiful here now in our fall, and the temperatures are cooling, and you don't have the bugs that we do have in the summer and stuff like that, and it's just a beautiful time to be outside fishing.
Yeah, the fall in the Northeast is always a great sight to see.
Yeah, if you've never experienced it, it is something to come see it. And October is, I always think October is one of our best months here.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
one of my favorite months because it's not too warm. We do have nice warm days. What I say is warm. So we're talking, anywhere. We've had some days this week now. We're talking centigrade, which is 20 degrees. So we're talking in the 70s Fahrenheit, I guess. So, which is for me is comfortable.
Yep. Yeah. October. Whenever I talk to my family to visit up there, October is the safe month. Come November, come Halloween, I'm out of there. I am going south. November 1st, I need to be out of New England. So, yeah,
Yeah.
October is
Yeah.
perfect with the weather change.
It can change fairly quickly. It
Yeah.
depends from year to year. Last year we had a fantastic November. The first 2 weeks of November, I fished striped bass in another region of the province, and t-shirt weather. You just never know.
Yep.
This year it could be 3 feet of snow. Who knows?
I hope not for you. I hope
No,
that
I don't
I hope
know
that
either.
pushes for you. Well, much later into
Yeah,
November.
we're due after what we just went through. I think we need some decent weather to keep going for a while.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. Well, while we're talking about favorites in this, what is a bucket list fish that you want to catch someday?
I would have to say that would be a tarpon on the fly. I've
Ooh, on the fly too.
On the fly, yeah. So I've seen lots of videos, and I'm a diver, an avid diver, and I've seen lots of tarpon when diving, but just to target a tarpon on the fly would be yeah. I think that's right up there on my bucket list.
I mean, you obviously get a challenge as it is when you said Atlantic salmon, I was like, oh, I know about that. But
Yeah,
tarpon, I've heard of it down here. We've got great anglers all the time that tell me about tarpon. And they're like, yeah, you hook up and you just hope for the best. And more often than not, you get
yeah.
ripped off. But the idea of that on a fly rod where you don't have a lot of butt to grab and hold, you are just all
No,
right there in that forearm.
yeah, that would be quite challenging. So, and like I said, I've seen the videos, I've seen the shows, the guys out there targeting them on the fly rod, and man, when they hook up, look out.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, well, you come down to Florida. I believe you told me you come down here every now and again. Every
Yeah.
couple, and you've got the perfect places for it. You know where to go.
Well, I haven't been to Florida in a long time, but the next time I do go, I'll make sure I'm bringing my gear. Now, I may not have the gear to tackle a tarpon, but I'm sure I could find it somewhere there.
Oh, that won't be a problem. I mean, if anything,
Yeah.
I'm sure that I can. We'll work together. I will find the network for you somehow,
Okay.
some way. We between the two of us, we will find a way to get you hooked up. I don't know how, but we will
Sure.
figure it out. Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Deal.
now we're talking about bucket lists. Let's talk about kind of along the same lines. Where would be a dream place for you to go try and fish someday?
There's a lot of places I see that I often thought I would love to go and experience. Lately, one of the places been coming up, and I've seen a lot on is Iceland, and they're promoting there's a salmon fisher in there. They're promoting right now. They're promoting their trout fishing, the brown trout, big trout there, and just I've always wanted to go there and see it. We're here in Nova Scotia. We're actually not that far from Iceland. I mean, really by plane.
Yeah.
There used to be direct flights actually out of Nova Scotia, out of Halifax to Reykjavik, and but yeah, I think that's one of the places lately I've been sort of keeping an eye on.
All right, that'd be cool. Yeah, I mean, like you
Yeah,
said, quick, easy run on a plane.
yeah.
What has been one of your favorite fishing memories?
Again, this has been a lifetime thing for me, and I have so many good memories. I think back when I was a kid for the trout I caught, and I can still remember as a young boy fishing a little stream and, catching a trout. I can remember the first striped bass I caught when I first started going after striped bass, not really knowing what I was doing, and read a few things, watched a few videos. I said, "Oh, that's kind of cool." I went out, and sure enough, caught myself some striped bass. Thinking back to the first time I hooked into an Atlantic salmon, I can clearly remember that. There's not like one favorite,
Yeah,
but I've got a whole list of favorites that I can remember.
I love that you went down when you're talking about that though about your first on like brook trout or trout and uh, every one of the firsts. You always remember your firsts, but
Oh yeah,
all of that. I mean, you went down so many of the species with all those memories. I'm not surprised you can't pick one. I wouldn't be able to. The way you describe it, you can kind of you can really tell that this has been a lifelong thing for you, and it's brought you nothing but pure joy.
yeah, definitely. I mean, now at my age now, and I'm into my retirement basically, and like I said, it was what kept me grounded all those years when, I was working as a first responder when things weren't, going good or things got tough. And it was, like I said, it was my release to get out. And now I still have the same passion now as I've always had. And you know what it's like when you fish, no matter where you go, what type of fish you're targeting. When you get that tug on that line, your heart rate goes up a little bit. You still get that same feeling. Doesn't matter what age you are, what fish you're targeting. You know what I mean when I say that. So
Oh yeah.
when you're yeah.
I think everyone listening to this after you said that just smiled and thought like, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
tug. We always say the tug is the drug. It
Oh
gets you.
yeah. Oh yeah. And like I said, it doesn't matter. Sometimes it doesn't matter what type of fish, even the size of the fish. You get that when you get that tug on the line, it's like, like I said, that heart rate goes up just a little bit, and you're in that moment.
Yep. Well, this is the perfect transition time. So Bait check. This first bait check has been brought to you by DS Custom Tackle. Head on over to dscustomtackle.com. Take a look at all the things they have in the shop running available. I recently just got those glow-in-the-dark floats that are sand flea colored on one side and glow-in-the-dark on the other. They are glorious. Great glow. They're going to hold up really well. I'm looking forward to get them out there. They've also got the sinker sliders, hoochie squids, which is a new thing that I've been taking a look at, and it's kind of got my attention on something because I am playing a little bit more in the lure game. But if you need any other terminal tackle or any other gear of that nature, DS Custom Tackle has you covered. Head on over to dscustomtackle.com, get your order in today, and get set up to go fishing. Now, let's see here. So we've talked about those, and you're going all that. We've talked about the fun stuff. Now we're into one of my favorite parts of the episode, which is known as stealing your knowledge. So we're going to get into the fun piece here. All right. So you have all these. You've got your areas. You've been doing this a while. How do you plan your fishing trips?
Well, when I'm for my guiding business, usually when I first make contact with my sport, I usually like to talk to them by phone, but usually I'll be contacted via email or by messenger, and I usually like to have the conversation by phone. And first thing I always do is I try to get a little background on their, what their experience level is, what they're looking for that day. Again, the experience level is a big thing because I would say probably 80% of the people I take out have never really fished striped bass before. It's something they've seen. It's probably the most popular fishery here in Nova Scotia now. It's really taken off over the last several years. So a lot of people are seeing it. They're seeing things on social media. They're seeing things in the media. And they just want to get out and give it a try. So, I need to talk to them and find out basically their experience level, and then I can go from there. Because I've had everything from, I've had people, or, they'll bring kids. I try to limit the kids to about age 12, but I have had kids out age 7 and 8. And some of the gear I use is fairly big for a 7 and 8-year-old. So then if I know we're taking kids out that age, I'll have to, I've got to go to smaller gear and set up smaller gear for them. Once I get their background and get information on them, then I'll usually, if they're here, and I work in conjunction with Pictou Lodge Beach Resort. So I do guide a lot of their guests, just trying to figure out the times and days for them. The striped bass fishing here is very tide dependent. So that's another thing. It's if you can time the tides with either sunrise or sunset, that's your optimal time to get out for striped bass. I'm not sure, what it's like down the eastern seaboard of the States, but here that seems to work best. I'll offer a sunrise fishing, but in the summer that means you're on the beach at 4 a.m. So or earlier.
Don't forget, you're north. You are north, and you are more east than normal.
Yeah, so not a lot of people. Sometimes a lot of people maybe don't want to get up that early. We do have regulations here, so we're allowed to fish 2 hours prior to sunrise and 2 hours past official sunset for striped bass. So I would say the majority of people I have will want to go out for sort of sundown fishing. So, like I said, and then I'll just, it's everything from getting out and getting the bait, getting the rods and reels ready. It's probably a 3-hour setup time for me when I'm taking people out to make sure I've got everything set, because I provide everything. I'm providing all the gear, the tackle, the bait. I set up chairs, I have coolers. But I'm usually arrive about an hour before I'm taking anybody out, and I get everything set up, and then my website usually says about an hour and a half, but it's never an hour and a half. It's as soon as we start fishing, that's it. It's I usually will stay as long as people want to stay, or till the fishing slows down.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of prep work to get ready for it. And depending on where I'm taking them, but like I said, mostly on the beaches here, I have my go-to spots. and I know them now, and after, getting out there and fishing them myself, and I would say, like, for your listeners, like, one of the big things I use too for finding, like, maybe a spot that I'm not familiar with is Google Earth. Like, go on the satellite and you can, like, especially, look at the water. You can see structures and stuff in the water on Google Earth. I'm constantly using that for trying to find, the optimal spots for fishing.
Yeah, the technology we have nowadays is a great tool to use for fishing. I love it. Dangerous too, because it's like, well, when was this picture taken, and is that hole still there? That's the only
Yeah,
thing
I
I
know.
hate.
Especially with the ocean now. Things change and change dramatically now year to year. I mean, like we talked to earlier, we just had a hurricane go through here, so things have changed quite a bit.
Yeah, that was going to be my
So,
next question to you there. When as soon as you mentioned that, I was going to say, how much has the structure changed after the pull?
oh boy, we had huge storm surge. The beaches here changed. I live right at the mouth of. I live in a community called Pictou Landing. I live right at the mouth of Pictou Harbor, and I live right across from a beach, and I can look across and see our beach. It's even changed since from 3 weeks ago. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of spots.
Yeah,
Some of my go-to spots have changed quite a bit, but
maybe they got better. Maybe that it'll just only be better.
well, yeah, you never know.
No. Well, you started talking about equipment here, and let's talk about that. So, what is your preferred? This is a two-part question, so we'll start with one, and then we'll do the other.
Sure.
What is your preferred rod size and type?
So I'm targeting the striped bass here, usually with bait. I'm either using mackerel or squid. So I'm using 10-foot surf casting rods. So I'm using Penn Spinfisher 6 rod reel combo. I worked the deal with Bass Pro, and they were able to help me out quite a bit. I I got those combos. I just find with the Spinfisher 6 rod, the Penn Spinfisher 6 6500 series reel, I'm running 50-pound braid on that. So my go-to setup for bait fishing is that rod reel combo, and I'm running a three-way swivel off that. So main line down to the three-way swivel. And what I do is I'll run mono once, like I'll run. So I'm using a weight depending on the tide and current, anywhere between a 2 ounce and a 9 ounce weight. And I'll either use like what I call the puck weights or the pyramid weights. I find the puck weights don't hook up as bad as the pyramid weights, but if you're in sand, the pyramid weights are fine. And I'll run 30-pound mono off the three-way swivel and down to the weight, and then off the other swivel, off the other circle on the swivel, I'll just run that down to like an 8 or 9 aught circle hook. So here in Nova Scotia, there are regulations that we had to follow for equipment for bait fishing for striped bass. One of the regulations, and now this is where it gets a little tricky here. If you do come here, you've really got to pay attention to the regulations. To fish tidal water in Nova Scotia, you do not need a license. So anybody can come here and fish tidal water. You're not required to have a license. In the Gulf region where I am located, we are required to use barbless circle hooks for bait fishing. You can't use any other type of hook. It's got to be a barbless circle hook. The other part of the Nova Scotia, the sort of the eastern seaboard of Nova Scotia, is what's called the maritime region. Their regulations are different. They can use barbed hooks. They can use whatever hook they want, I guess. So that's, it's different for either side of the province here on the regulations. But that's the go-to setup that I have for bait fishing. The other setup I have is I'm using 7-foot one-piece Penn Fierce 3 rods with 4000 series reel. Again, I'm running braid on those. Those are a medium extra fast action rod. And most of the time I'm using on those, what I use on those is like a 1/2 ounce jig head with like a Mr. Twister curly tail grub, either white or pink. What doesn't matter to the color, the action of those things, the stripers just love them. And then those, when I do have younger kids coming, those are the rods I'll set up for bait. So I'm running 20 pound braid on those, and I'll set those up for bait. And it's easier for the kids to use those rods instead of the 10-foot Spinfisher 6 rods. They can get a little heavy, a little big for, younger people, or even some adults, have a little hard time with them sometimes. But those are the two setups I usually use for guiding. And this year I did start offering fly fishing for striped bass. I picked up, it's called a Redington Coastal Cold Water Combo. And basically it's a 9-foot 9-weight rod, and it's all geared for salt water.
I mean, I did not expect that. I thought you were running 11s or 12s. That's pretty cool that you're running 10s and 7s.
Yeah. So now, yeah, the other thing too is, like, in Nova Scotia, we actually, depending on the region. So like I mentioned, we have the Gulf region where I am, and then we have the Maritime region, which is on the other side of the province. So the striped bass on the Gulf region, they're a little different strain than what's on the other side of the province. So our fish are not getting as big as they are on the other side of the province. I think I had a young lady from New York this year landed a 30-inch striper here, which is good size. But I have heard I think they're getting bigger here. I have heard of fish plus, 35 inches plus being caught here. Now, in the Maritime region, the fish, they spawn out of a river system on the other side of the province, and those fish are a bigger strain of striped bass. And we're talking 50-pound fish potential. So much bigger fish than we have here.
Yeah, they're monsters over there.
Yeah. So yeah, if you do go on any websites for Nova Scotia, check out the Stewiacke or Shubenacadie River. The fishing there on the stripers there are quite big, much bigger than what we have here in the Gulf region.
Well, you already took care of the next part of that question with the reel type, so we're already good there. We get to move on to the next one.
Oh, okay.
So with the you talked a little bit about it here using Google Earth and with your current honey holes and kind of that. Well, if you're walking around and you're kind of just trying to figure it out, how do you select a spot to fish?
For me here, and again, this is things I've learned over the years being out targeting striped bass, is I'm looking for areas, sort of what I call as choke points. For example, here at the mouth of our harbor, it narrows down to a very narrow point and then opens up into the Northumberland Strait. So on the tide change, you're getting quite a flow of water through there. And my experience here with the striped bass is they just love to sit off the edges of that fast water, right? Especially on the outgoing tide. And they'll sit off the edge there on drop-offs or structure. They're just waiting for that bait fish to get washed by. And so I look for a lot of areas like that, a lot of areas where there are inland sort of bays or inlets that flow out into the ocean, either through harbor mouths or, sometimes we get sand dunes here that get breached with storms and stuff like that. And now you have a small outflow going out into the ocean. I mean, example this year is I went to an area with about a 45-minute drive from here, just looking again, I'm always looking for areas to take sports. I went to an area and I have a fishing kayak, and I just explored this inner bay with the fishing kayak, and spots that looked good to me for striped bass, and sure enough, I got into them right away. So it's something too that after years of being out on the water doing that, you start to get a feel for. You can start to be able to read the water and get a feel for where the potential is going to be, that you can get into the fish.
Yep, I can see that. Well, this next question is a little bit different because you've already hit quite a few of these things. When it comes to the striped bass or the salmon here, normally I ask how you set your gear up. You told us that. when you're running a 10-footer and a 7-footer, how far out are these fish normally hitting?
Here, what I generally try to do is I'll try to fish them about an hour and a half on the incoming tide. You can catch fish anytime, anywhere, any tide, if you're lucky enough. But if you want to optimize your chances of getting the fish, for us here, I find it's usually an hour and a half coming on the incoming tide, and then if you can time that with the either sunrise or sunset, usually in the dark, dusk is the optimal time, and then they will feed at night as well. But with that the Spinfisher 6 setup I have with the 50-pound, I'm running 50-pound braid on there. By the time I put a 4 or 5 ounce weight on there with a chunk of mackerel or squid, I mean, you can cast that thing a mile. But my experience, we don't have to cast out that far. I mean, I've had people catch stripe on a high tide. I've had people catching striped bass 10 feet off the beach. They're coming right in. So they'll force the bait fish right in the shore and feed. So sometimes you don't have to go that far off the beach to get them.
Oh man, that's glorious.
Yeah,
it's one of the.
It's nice. Yeah, it's nice. And then, like I said, here in the summer, it's nice because our water's warm enough that you don't need waders. You can go in your beach shorts. If you have to wade out, you can wade out. The water's warm. But majority of the time when I take people, we don't even have to go in the water. If you can time it with the tides. So
perfect. That makes things a lot easier when you're out there. Well, you nailed the next two questions about kinds of bait you use and lures and fish you target. Yep. So let's talk a bit.
Sorry, I keep jumping ahead.
No, it's perfect. I mean, it's flowed wonderfully. So I am not complaining, not even a little. I am going to say you're going to be a little upset because I'm going to send you some questions that weren't on your list. So, but it works with this anyway. Problem. How I didn't put them on here, I don't know. What got you into guiding?
My career as a first responder, I was an instructor in a lot. I was a firearms instructor. I worked in our training department for years, so I really like getting out and instructing people and helping people. And the whole guiding thing was just, it just fit. I'm able to take people, like I told you earlier, like probably 80% of the people I take are beginners. And there have been times where I'll spend the first half hour just showing them how to set gear up, how to tie hooks on. A lot of people, don't know that, how to bait a hook, how the reel works, all the things like that. And those are the things that I enjoy as a guide, is the teaching points and the instructing. And don't get me wrong, I mean, catching fish too, if they can get into fish. But yeah, no, that's sort of what got me into the guiding. So I hope you just want to continue with that.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, especially being an instructor before, so that works out really bad. Yeah, it's weird how that works. Yeah, you start teaching, and then it just kind of follows you forever.
Yeah, and the Fish Nova Scotia here, they really support the guides here in our province, and they do put on a lot of really good seminars. We have a lot of weekend seminars we get to go to. I just really enjoy getting together with the other guides, going on these seminars, and just getting out there and guiding. It's a lot of fun.
I can imagine, especially with a team. Well, now that we've talked about what comes with going on a trip with you.
So if you want to book with Stripers of the Strait, I'm going to supply you with everything. I'm supplying with rods, reels, tackle, bait. I'll bring chairs. I have sand spikes that I will to set up the rods, even though I encourage people to hold rods rather than have them in the sand spikes. I just feel you get you'll feel the take a little quicker. And I have had rods pulled right out of the sand spikes into the water. So I encourage people to hold on to them. And like I said, I'll supply everything you need to get you out fishing for striped bass for 2 or 3 hours. And like I said, I do have fly fishing gear as well. So now with the fly fishing gear, I'm looking towards more experienced people who obviously know how to fly fish, because it's not something that, I'm going to be able to take you in 2 or 3 hours and teach you how to fly fish and then have you fly fishing for striped bass. It's just, it would be fairly difficult.
Yeah, it's not.
So,
It's
but
not going to be a fun charter either because you're going to be a
no,
little
no,
frustrated.
yeah, no, it's going to be more learning how to try to figure out how to cast a big fly rod.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I have guided a few people this year for fly fishing, and they were experienced fly fishers. So, it was all I had to do was supply the gear and take them to the spots.
That's perfect.
So,
How is
yeah.
how is a charter day different than your normal fishing day?
Uh, well, usually, like I said, the planning it's about a 3 hour setup beforehand. I usually will go through all my gear, everything from, I make sure I check my main line down to my leaders, check my leaders. I've got to go check all my gear, my hooks and everything, make sure they're barbless. Like it's hard to, now I do find barbless hooks here to buy them, but a lot of times I don't. So, they've got to be pinched down. So, I've got to really make sure that the gear is set properly, when people are coming out. So, like I said, I'll usually pack up my car and have everything ready to go. I head over usually about an hour and a half prior to the guests or the sports arriving. And I set everything up on the beach. I want everything set up on the beach. So when you arrive, everything's ready to go. So I'll give you a quick 1-2 on how to use the rod and reels. If you're experienced in fishing, usually that doesn't take any time at all. Even using, if you're not experienced, using spinning gear is not that difficult. It doesn't take very long to figure out. That's it. We get you right into fishing, and hopefully we get some fish on.
All right, I'm ready to fly up.
Okay.
What is the area that you service for your charters?
I'm a guide. I'm a licensed guide for the province of Nova Scotia. I guess I'll travel wherever. If you want to go, I'll go. Our season does close here October 31st. However, in what I described earlier is the Maritime region, which is what's called the Bay of Fundy. If you want to look at the Bay of Fundy, it's highest tides in the world. And I will go there starting the beginning of November because the season there doesn't close. It stays open all year round. Now, when it starts getting too cold, the fish really shut off. So that's the thing. But last year, I think I fished right up to the end of November on the other side of the province.
Since you've been doing this for a couple of years now, what has been your favorite part of running charters?
You know what? I think it's been the kids. Just the pure joy of the kids getting out. Like I had two young brothers last month, had never fished before. Took the time and I showed them some basics on casting and stuff like that. In half an hour, the two of them are catching fish. So it's I think that that's the fun part. So I think that that's the favorite part of it. I think right there is getting out with the kids. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I really, like I said, everybody I've had out and has come fishing with me is they've been super nice people, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It really does.
Yeah.
Perfect moment here. It is your second bait check of the episode. This bait check has been brought to you by The Sinker Guy. Head on over to thesinkerguy.com and take a look at all the things that Chip's got going on in the Sinker Guy garage. The Bruno rig, maybe you've heard of it recently. I don't know. It only kind of caught a bunch of permit here recently on our little shores, and it held up wonderfully. It also helped us land somewhere, I don't know, about 50 pompano that tournament. But we don't talk about Bruno. You need sinkers? He's got you covered. Sputnik sinkers all day. One of my favorite ones to use out here. Doesn't matter the current. I am using them. He's also got the Bruno rig. He's got the Mighty Palos rig. He's also got my other second favorite rig, the Mortician. Lots of great things there in the Sinker Guy garage. Plenty of terminal tackle and lots of other equipment needed. Quick shipping and great customer service. So again, head on over to thesinkerguy.com. Get yourself set up for success. Now that we've talked about those with that part, let's talk a little bit of the business aspect. The
Sure.
the first one, there's only really two questions actually. What have
Okay.
been some very from valuable lessons learned after starting and running your charter?
Well, I started this right at the beginning of COVID, and
Ouch.
I I thought I was shut down right off the start. But you know what? A lot of local people came out and supported me. That 2 years ago, right at the beginning of COVID. I guess that's a positive thing. But some of the things I've learned from the business side of it, the social media aspect of it. I had to admit I'm not the strongest on social media. It's a big part of fishing now and being a guide. If you're going to get into guiding or chartering, it's you got to be there with it. And I'm slowly learning. Luckily, my wife's very good at it, and she was able to set up my website. And shout out to my wife, Linda. So she was able to set up my website and get me going, basically, get my business going for me. I guess it's not a real business part of it, but one of the parts of it that would get to me was when I first started doing this was the stress of people not catching fish. And it's there. You're going to have days where you're not going to catch fish, no matter what you do. And I've sort of now 3 years into this, I'm starting to realize, okay, I can't let that bother me because it's going to happen. And that's one thing. If you're going to get into guiding, or you've got to sort of get beyond that because there's going to be times when you're not going to catch fish. You feel bad for your sport, your clients, and you really want them to get fish, but there are times it's just not going to happen.
I've heard that from almost every guide. That one
Yeah,
worry of like, oh, I got to get him on the fish. I got to get him on the fish. That is the
yeah,
killer of that hurts the heart.
yeah. It does. And like I said, you just after 3 years of this now, I'm starting to sort of not worry about as much as I used to. Still, sometimes you're like, man, come on, and sometimes it doesn't happen. Like I said, it's up to them, not us. So it's
Yeah.
up to the fish.
They make the choice if they're going to eat it or not.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, how do people book a trip with you?
There's several ways you can book a trip. If you come into Nova Scotia and you want a great place to stay, is Pictou Beach Lodge Resort. They do offer a stay and fishing package, so you can book it through them. You can look me up on my website, and you can contact me through Sean at stripersandstrait.com. Or my phone number is listed there as well. You can text me or you can give me a call if you want. Doesn't matter to me either way. Like I said earlier too, if you're going to try to book a trip with me, I'm going to eventually want to reach out and talk to you by phone. And I just find it easier to plan the trips when we can talk, because sometimes with texting and autocorrect, you may not get the right things across.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I really meant to say duck
yeah,
that time. Sorry.
yeah,
All right. So you're coming up on the end here. We only got a few more questions, and they're
sure.
great, easy knowledge ones. So you're going to have fun with this. Or how do you adjust tactics for fishing when the bite isn't on fire?
So uh, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll try different methods. If we're fishing bait, sometimes I'll switch to the spinning gear, and I will. And like I said, my go-to is a half-ounce jig head with a 5-inch squirrel tail grub, and just different. Sometimes it's even the rate of retrieve. If you can slow that retrieve down, sometimes the stripers will hit it. Sometimes you speed it up, they'll hit it. So it's just you've got to. For me, like I said, when I go to the beach, I've got a bunch of different setups all ready to go. So I'll try a bunch of different things. Same thing with targeting with on the fly with a fly rod. Sometimes it's critical with if you're stripping line, it's the retrieval rate. Sometimes you really have to slow it down. Sometimes I've gotten there and we're stripping line, and then just too fast and just slow it down a bit. And next thing you know, boom, you're into the fish. It's just little things like that. Yeah, you got to learn and you figure out. The other things too are, again, I'll have different areas where I go. Like some areas here, we're fishing just right off a beach, so we're looking for tide coming in and going straight out, basically. There's other areas, like I said, what I refer to as what I call choke points. So the areas where they're going to narrow, where where the current's going to speed up. And from my experience here, I find that the bass just love to sit off that fast water sometimes, right on the edge of it. And that seems to be, if you can look for areas like that, if the beach is not working, then you go to an area like that, give that a try.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Well, if
Yeah.
you were to up and go to a very new place to try fishing, what would you do? How would it be different for you to go fish in a new place? What would you do?
Again, I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be looking at Google Earth. I'm
Ye-
gonna be checking out where I am. Sit back and watch some of the locals.
That's a good one.
Sit back and watch where some of the local guys go, because they know it. And if you're going somewhere where you don't know, sometimes it pays just to sit back and just watch, see where people are going, see where people are fishing. We have some spots here, I know, with some of our local guys. It's their spot on the beach, and they go there all the time, and they catch fish all the time, and they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes you just got to sit back and just watch.
You deal with a lot of brand new anglers when you're getting charters. You run
Yep,
into that a lot with kids. If you
right.
could tell somebody, a brand new angler, one tip, what would you give them for advice?
You know what? Don't be intimidated by it. Just get out there, and there's a lot of stuff on YouTube now. There's a lot of videos. There's a lot of stuff on social media. There's shows like your show. There's a lot of stuff out there where you can read and learn and figure things out. But sometimes you just got to go get some gear and get out there and give it a try. And you know what? When I first started fishing striped bass, I mean, I read about them, I researched them and stuff like that, but I went and bought, probably didn't have the greatest rod in the world and probably not the best gear, but you know what? I caught fish. You don't need to run right out and get the best gear in the world and have $500 worth of tackle and stuff like that. Just get out there and get some gear and get out there and give it a try and just keep at it. You'll figure things out.
The $500 rod and the $500 reel aren't going to really make a difference in catching the fish as much as you might think.
No, I mean, nice to have.
Beautiful, wonderful. Oh, don't. Yeah, they're great to have.
Yeah. I mean, these setups I have, I chose Penn because Penn's a great name in saltwater fishing, and
Yep.
the rods and reels I have I mean, I love them. They're fairly decent setups, and I wanted some decent gear for people to try and use. And the other thing is too is with the gear that I have, I know that it's going to last. It's gonna stand up to the saltwater environment, stuff like
Yep.
that. But again, you don't need to go right out and buy stuff like this to get into it. Get out there, get some gear, give it a try, and then as you get your experience level increases, then you can start getting into the gear.
What do you recommend to someone coming to your area to fish that has never been there before doing before they start fishing?
I guess just learn a little bit about our area. It depends on where you're coming from. If you're coming from the U.S., I mean, the first thing you're going to notice is it's going to be a lot cheaper for you here because your dollar's worth a lot more. You've you've got a 30% discount right off the start. So, the other thing too is if you're going to come here, like I said, you're not required to have a license here to fish tidal water. You're not required to have a guide. It does help, but you're not required. But the big thing is learn the regulations, read the regulations because they are different from different areas in the province here. They can get a little bit confusing sometimes, and you got to know the regulations where you're fishing. So that would be one of the big things.
Yeah, your different regulations definitely had my attention when you started talking about that. I was like, all right, that's something to be slightly worried about. So that's good. Thank you for
Yeah,
reminding people of
yeah,
that.
and that's again, that's where it pays if if you want to, especially I'm not, obviously, if you have a guide here in the province, they're going to know the regulations or should know the regulations, and you're going to be okay there. But if you're coming here on your own and you think you're going to throw a line in the water, like I said, you got to read up on the regulations first and know what they are.
Makes sense. Well, this is the last question. You've made it through the gauntlet. Congratulations.
Okay, right.
All right. So the final question of the episode for you today is, what is next for you?
You know what? I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I'm loving what I'm doing, and one of the things I do have sort of what I'm looking at now is I do have a boat, and I may get the boat geared up for fishing charters. Possible. Again, here in Canada, we have a lot of different, a lot of regulations that we have to go through for commercial fishing. But that is one thing I think that maybe in the future for me, just be able to get, boat is going to allow me to access areas, more areas quicker than what I can just fishing from shore.
Sounds like a fun ad.
Yeah.
Lots of good stuff coming there. Well, seriously, Sean, thank you so much for coming on the show. You really gave a lot of great knowledge, and you have a ton of great fish to target up there. You definitely
Yeah.
you definitely have a good fishery, it sounds like, and congratulations
Yeah.
on doing that.
Yeah, no, like I said, we do. We have an awesome fishery here in Nova Scotia. Like I said, we're Canada's ocean playground. We've got, I don't know how many species of ocean fish you can target, and our sport fish here too, and our freshwater fish. So basically, you can fish all year round here with ice fishing as well.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's actually become very popular. So there's no bad time of the year to come here to fish.
Oh, man. Just thinking about ice fishing, that's cold. Oh, it's so cold, but it's good.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, yeah, so thank you again, Sean. Really, I'm glad we were able to get on here. I'm glad we were able to talk, and thanks for sharing your knowledge. I appreciate it.
All right, Brian. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. We'll be talking soon.
Okay. See you now.
Yes, sir. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We just got done talking with Sean Townsend of Stripers of the Strait. And if you're not convinced to take a trip up to Nova Scotia, I don't know what more you need for incentive, because I want to go. That sounds amazing to even get a chance to fish up there like that. Atlantic salmon, yeah, that sounds pretty delicious. So, again, you can take a look at Sean's website. It's stripersofthestrait.com. He's also on Facebook, Stripers of the Strait. You can find him on both of those there, and you can follow him all through that information. If you want to reach out to Sean, you can send him an email at Sean, SEAN, at stripersofthestrait.com, and he will get back in touch with you. Thank you for sticking around here. Thanks for being a part of this show. You are the ones that make this constantly worth doing, and all the knowledge that you guys keep sending me and sharing with the community, it only is going to help somebody out there become a better angler. So thank you for all that you do. Keep sharing this out. Keep coming back and learning for more. We got a lot more to talk about and a lot more things to do throughout these episodes. You've been listening to Finding Demo Surf Fishing. We'll see you next week. I'm out of here.